Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar. I'm your host, Scott Miller, and I'm responsible for marketing at Actify. And we're joined today by Mark Anderson, who will be sharing with us a product demonstration on today's call. So in this session, we'll be exploring Actify's CAD viewers. We'll be highlighting their capabilities to support various design scenarios and collaboration requirements. So on the right-hand side, we have SpinFire Ultimate. It's an industry-leading application and is Actify's flagship CAD viewer. It's a powerful desktop application for viewing, measuring, analyzing, and reviewing CAD data. And on the left-hand side, we have SpinFire Web. It's Actify's zero-download, browser-based CAD viewer. It's a user-friendly CAD tool that can be accessed by any web-enabled device, such as your mobile, tablet, and desktop, giving you the flexibility of working from home office or on the road. And we've integrated SpinFire Web into our own central solution and our various business tools. However, SpinFire Web also comes with a SDK, a solution developer kit, so it can also be integrated into a number of business applications which you might have. So we've helped a number of customers integrate SpinFire Web with their in-house PDM or ERP applications. So to make this an efficient use of your time, we've laid out a brief agenda. So stick with me for 5 to 10 minutes and we'll review the capabilities of these applications before Mark provides us with our product demonstration. I'd like to remind everyone that this is a live webinar. So for those that have joined us live, you get the benefit of asking us questions. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that facility. If you do have questions at any stage during the session, please submit your questions to the chat facility and we'll get to those during the Q&A section near the end of our call. So in a previous webinar, we actually covered design collaboration in detail using SpinFire Ultimate. So I would encourage you to check out our previous webinar recording if you've inspired or feel inspired to do so in order to learn more. All of our webinar recordings are actually accessible through the video section on our website. But just to recap some of those key themes about collaboration that we shared on our webinar, it was point number one was the need for CAD data accessibility downstream of engineering. So the need is that there are many job functions around the enterprise that require information that comes from CAD files to support their daily work activities. SpinFire Ultimate is designed to provide the enterprise with a cost-effective access to CAD data because not everyone needs to author data, but everyone needs to access that information. So SpinFire provides CAD data exchange, and with that you're able to open numerous CAD file formats, but you're also able to convert CAD files into various formats to support that downstream requirement for different manufacturing and measurement machines. Point number two is the operational benefits from design collaboration. So in that webinar, we evaluated the impact that effective communication and collaboration can have on a product lifecycle. And with faster feedback and contributions from a wider range of stakeholders, you can not only reach an optimal design solution, but you can also efficiently get to market earlier. And there's a number of benefits that come with those, such as lower costs, earlier break-even points, higher profits, and potentially longer life for that product as well. And point number three that we shared when we're focusing on SpinFire Ultimate was that the CAD application needs to be user-friendly and convenient and accessible. So we actually demonstrated how you could fully embed SpinFire Ultimate into your Microsoft Office applications. So that's Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. We can embed SpinFire Web, and so can you. It's a feature that's available with SpinFire Ultimate, and it can enrich communication and collaboration, giving people CAD information in a format that's convenient, user-friendly, and normal for them. So now that we've quickly expressed the need and the benefit of design collaboration, we can review Actify's CAD viewing tools, and we'll take a look at any commonality and differences that there might be. So both tools have been developed to be user-friendly and easy to use to support the casual usage by other business users. But at a glance, we can see that there are some differences in the user interface. So SpinFire Ultimate on the left is a fully featured CAD viewer. It has many more features available for interrogating CAD designs. and it has been designed for the desktop. So the user interface itself has been designed to effectively use the workspace, displaying your features and tools, and also displaying the assembly tree. Whereas if we see on the right, SpinFire Web, it's a lightweight CAD viewer, and the design of that application considers usage and access on smaller displays, such as mobile and tablets. So the assembly tree and features have been contained within drop-down menus and panels that can pop in and out from the side of the screen in order to really maximize the workspace when you're working on one of these smaller display devices. So this leaves the interface looking quite clean and simplified, which also improves adoption and user experience for, say, a non-technical worker who needs to access some CAD information. When we look at the available features, it's immediately obvious that SpinFire Ultimate provides significantly more capabilities. So you might overlook it, but that long list of features along the top are also drop-down menus which have a list of features and functions within them as well. So many more capabilities are available inside of SpinFire Ultimate. You can manage your views, render, and display effects with SpinFire Ultimate. There's also a vast library of measurement functions for linear, radial, angular, advanced, and smart dimensioning. We can also do some smart calculations for surface area, volume of a void, and length of pipes, etc. And also with SpinFire, we can provide analysis capabilities. And I think that's one of the defining things to note here, is that you can use SpinFire Ultimate for analysis, for inspecting draft angles, wall thickness, curvature, and comparing models, just to name a few. So during the demo, I think Mark will show you some of these distinct capabilities that positions SpinFire Ultimate as the deeper application for analyzing and investigating your CAD models. But SpinFire on the desktop provides greater dimensioning, calculations, and analysis. But by comparison, SpinFire Web has significantly less features, but has been viewed as a user-friendly tool for inspecting and viewing CAD models through the web. So it has been designed with the web in mind. And we have a feature which is smart dimensioning, and this provides a very versatile tool for really measuring the different aspects of a model's geometry and form. And it covers a lot of the requirements, but also SpinFire Web provides a number of markup tools, such as redlining and the ability to leave feedback. So the focus on SpinFire Web is more of a simplified tool to enhance CAD accessibility and also collaboration. And this is my last point before we lead into Mark's demonstration, is that when we look at sharing CAD designs with these different applications, in order to assess how it could support your design workflow, SpinFire Ultimate, you can save your feedback, you can save your analysis and views within a compressed Act3D file format. So that is Actify's proprietary file format, and Actify also provides a free viewer. That viewer is called SpinFire Reader, and it is downloadable from our website. I've put the link address on this slide, but SpinFire Reader is used purely as a reader of Actify's compressed Act3D file format. It's free of charge, and you do not need a CAD system. With Actify's SpinFire Reader, it's perfect for those that mainly just need to view and read design data that's shared with them in the Act3D format. So you can perform limited dimensioning and measuring features, but it's an effective tool to help expand access of that design data to users who only really have or need to read the CAD file. And with SpinFire Web, since it's online, you don't need to physically download software or physically send files. So you can just share a link. So by providing this link and assuming that the other user also has permission to access the link that you've shared, then you're able to share the file online. SpinFire Web securely provides CAD access using the browser, but the benefit is that it keeps the CAD file local to your server. So this enables collaboration, but also keeps the control of the CAD file within your company's domain. So SpinFire Web can also provide greater control when you collaborate, because you can disable measurements and disable some of the PMI information, meaning that you can control the read access level and ensure that your design details are secure when you're collaborating, say, externally with external teams and third parties. So you could be confident that your information is secured and the details of your designs are not revealed. And the other benefit is that it can be accessed via any web-enabled device, giving you the convenience of reviewing it on a tablet or any desktop. It's not necessarily Windows like it is with Ultimate, but with SpinFire Web, you can actually view it on any hardware that has browser and access to the web. So at this point, I'm going to pass over to Mark Anderson, who will be sharing you a demonstration of these solutions. So Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Scott. Good afternoon, everyone. So starting off, we'll start on the SpinFire Ultimate side of things. As Scott has mentioned, this is a Windows desktop application, and I'll be highlighting the difference. I'll be highlighting the similarities and differences between SpinFire Ultimate and Web. So to begin with, one of the most obvious similarities between them is that they both have the exploded assembly. But in the case of Ultimate, I have a bit more choices for the exploded assembly in Ultimate. And so one moment. So let's do that again. So let's do this. Okay. So going to my user views, which by the way is specific for Ultimate. We do not have user views in SpinFire Web. So these are the explode assemblies I've already done in my Act3D file in Ultimate. And these are the different types of explosions I've done with the models. So this is so these can be saved to the Act3D file, and when user views are being changed over time, you can in fact see which user well, first created it or made the last changes to those user views. So that's how you do the exploded assembly. So going over to, now let's do a section cut. So let's do a single plane section cut. And there we go. So we've cut the model in half. And then again, I can decide I'm happy with this section cut and I want to save that to my user view. So I click new user view. I give that a name, section cut plane 1. And if I go to my default view, you'll see that section cut, the rotation, etc., that I just had is not in my default view. It is has been saved to that user view I created. So at this point, I can then do a right click on the section plane, and I could decide to not show the section plane like so. And I can do some, Scott has mentioned some various measurements against this part that's been cut in half. And I can also, if I go to my define menu and do this, put the section plane back on. Of course, we can move the section cut. We can change the rotation like so. But if we right click there, and if we have the projection mode on, I can then go to calculate and do projection area. And that's done an area calculation of the model. And I can take this further. I can export that section cut to a DXF file, or I can decide I want to create a 2D document within my Act3D, as you can see here. And you can see some other section cuts I've done here. So I've done a 3-plane section cut, and I have the section cuts turned off in this case. So at this point, I can start again using the various different measurements within that file that I've done a section cut. and that will be saved. And those measurements, those actions that I take against the file within that user view will be saved in that user view. So you can see here, here's an earlier projection area calculation I did. I've got it at a certain rotation. I can change that rotation using the navigation cube. I can click the cube and to rotate the model in this way. But we can also select the assembly just by going to the assembly tab, right click and calculate, and then I can calculate the volume, I can do the weight, I can do the minimum bounding box. Some of these you can do in some manners, in some ways in the web, but it is not to this level, and you can't. And so these are this is a volume and minimum bounding box I've saved in my user view that from earlier. Now, if I do that, if I wanted to do a bounding box in the SpinFire Web, and I want to have those measurements at hand, I can save them within the central application as an image. Now let's go back to the default view and let's hide this. Let's hide this projection I've done. And let's create a new navigation. Let's create a new coordinate system. So let's do our y-axis, and let's say about 700. So we have, looks like, in fact, I had one already there. So what I'm now going to do is go to select this whole assembly again, right click that assembly, go to transform. And of course I could move it manually if I wanted to, like this. But in this case, and it will tell you how much you've moved it by here. So each time I move it, it reports that there under the handles tab. But in this case, what I would like to do is move it from the general coordinates, its original coordinate, original location in the file, and actually I want to move it to my new coordinate system. And I can in fact do a preview of that, and I'm happy with that position, and then I apply. So it's now at the new coordinates. I can then right click the file and do focus, and I can use this new coordinate within my at3D file. And I can hide, I can create multiple coordinate systems and have parts have different parts in those coordinates. So of course with Ultimate, it's all about that deep interrogation of the file. It has much more features and functionality in comparison to the web application. Of course, having the application, the Ultimate application on your machine does obviously mean, of course, you're using the processing and graphics card of your machine to perform all these kind of actions. Whereas any actions you take within the SpinFire Web, viewing and doing those section cuts, etc., those of course are using the resources of the server that those files are stored on, rather than the end user's machine. So let's jump across to my other workspace, where I've already got two very similar assemblies inside the same file here in the same at3D file. Now, how I did that was so for example, I can go to the home page and I right click the second assembly I want to import into my currently open workspace using this import model here. So that's what I did in my case to import these into the same file. Because in this case, I want to do a model compare to see what physical differences there are between the two assemblies. But of course, compared to, so of course, we have all these other various analysis tools within Ultimate, whereas SpinFire Web does not have these. Whereas Centro does, of course, have the BOM manager where we can compare differences in assembly trees. But for Ultimate, we have as I mentioned, we're comparing the geometric differences rather than assembly item differences. So that's one of the differences there. So when I'm doing the model compare, I select one of the first assembly, and then I select the other assembly, and at that point I do a comparison, which it will use red for added and green for removed. So if we come to this model, and if I drag this across, you'll see that the differences, whether they've been added or removed, will be made transparent. So those added parts or removed parts are easy to distinguish between the two assemblies. What's been added and what's been removed in comparison to each other. You can, of course, change the colors of the added or removed as well. Now, of course, in both applications, Centro and SpinFire Ultimate, you can do CAD to CAD. So let's do, so again, we can do the conversions from the assembly, from the library tab, but in this case, I will do it from the from the homepage, sorry. And in this case, and of course, here are all the options to convert this file to these other CAD formats. And of course, in my example, I'll do a step file. You'll see here it switches to the library tab, and it's now down here, it's converting the file to a step file, and we can see the original file size and the new file size. Of course, when you're saving the, whether you're saving as an Act3D or you're converting the file, in Ultimate, you do have a lot of control over how much the file is compressed, or if the file size is increased, because if you're doing a lot of volume or weight calculations where it's very essential to get very accurate results, then of course you want to have to be using BREP in such instances, or maybe you want to have the 3D preview within your Windows environment to preview the model before you open it in SpinFire Ultimate. So let's also, just to remind you, you can of course extract the raw information of the file. So if I went down from file to export, and I went to part list, and if I click, now of course I can see that the assembly tree, now with a more complex model, of course, where the sub-assemblies have their own parts, you would see the names, you would see the sort of the assembly tree structure start sticking out to the right to indicate that it's a sub-assembly or a sub-assembly, etc. But of course, you can have that just flat, flat singular, straight down list, or you can have a multi-level, as we call it here. Now, in this case, I do want to see the physical properties relating to each of the assembly parts. So having clicked that, I can now see the quantity of each of those components. I can see the volumes, the surface areas, the minimum, the measurements, minimum bounding box measurements, etc. So hopefully that gave you a quick idea of what Ultimate can do. So let's now go across to SpinFire Web. So I have, so the first file assembly I showed you, we have this now we're now seeing this here, of course, on SpinFire Web. And we can see that the assembly tree matches what we had in Ultimate. And on the right-hand side, we can see some of the information stored within the original native CAD file, and anything that was saved to the Act3D file. But it's even possible with Centro to extract information from an Excel sheet and populate it against each of the components of this assembly. So in this case, what I did was run what we call a pipeline to extract that information from the Excel sheet, the CSV sheet, and Centro was able to determine from each line from those CSV files what parts it relates to. So in this case, here's a really basic example of the cost and time. Now, as I click on each of these parts, we'll see that the cost and time change as I click around, and you can see that the part is selected in the assembly tree. Again, anything else from the original native CAD file, we retain in both SpinFire Web and Web, we extract the native CAD views, and you can use those views within both of the products. So let's open so I want to see the PMI information, and this is a great example of the native CAD views you can see in SpinFire Web. So that we're displaying that PMI information in our browser. We didn't have to download the file. We're not using resources. We're not storing resources on the end user machine. We're doing all this, reviewing all this from the server on my network. So Web is a visual, more collaborative tool with some very high level features, with the smart edge and point-to-point distance, etc. So it's very, very high level. And while you're reviewing the and while you're going through the various components or the root assembly file, you can of course have these ticked, and while you're working, decide to suddenly want to download that resource, that file from Centro, and open it in your CAD viewer. So you can see here, you click here to download the other CAD to CADs that I've done in Centro. I can download any of those files while I'm actively using SpinFire Web. So if we go up a level, we go to the part view of my combustion unit. Again, you're seeing the CAD to CADs that I've done against the original SolidWorks file. But just like you saw with Ultimate, how I was able to generate a step file from this combustion unit, if we click the generate, I can generate a new SpinFire Web, and I can, of course, in fact, I can do this in the pipeline, or I can do this as a user in the part view, but I can generate a new SpinFire Web that will ignore any native CAD views or to not include PMI information, because it is, of course, possible for you to be sharing, collaborating on Centro with your suppliers. So there may be certain informational files you don't want them to download, but you may want to allow them that ability to view the information without being able to make any measurements. So that's why we have the disable measurements here, and we can ignore the native CAD views, and we can ignore the PMI. So perhaps an administrator or user generated some of the CAD to CAD actions, but not all of them. So while you're here as an end user, without even using the resources of your own end user machine, this is the server that's doing the generation of these of the CAD to CAD or SpinFire Web files. So that's all being done on the server. So I have the choice here to generate the CAD to CAD, to generate a new Act3D, and use different importer options, in fact, for the Act3D. So maybe there's certain files where you need wireframe turned on, etc. So on the Centro side, the SpinFire Web side, you do get control over what to include or not to include when you're generating those versions of the files. There was one thing I did forget, so that while you're using the SpinFire Web file, SpinFire Web environment, you can take a snapshot of that and save that to the Centro. So here's some measurements I did earlier. and I can in fact open that in the new tab, so I can clearly read you know, some text boxes or some of the measurements I've done, different length measurements there. Sorry, and some section cuts, various section cuts, different exploded assemblies. So so web, as Scott has mentioned, it's very high level. It's a viewing tool for it's more collaborative in nature. It's a very lightweight CAD viewer. With some of those very high level functionalities you saw web had, you also had them, of course, in Ultimate. So I believe that was everything we were wanted to show today. So thank you everyone for watching and attending. I'll now be passing you back to Scott.
Hi Mark, just before you do, could I ask you to display the SpinFire Web combustion unit one more time?
Yes, sorry, yeah.
And the metadata on the right-hand side. I think if we were to just highlight this component for a second, is that one of the other differentiating points between SpinFire Ultimate and SpinFire Web is that with SpinFire Web being connected to Central, it is able to associate the CAD information with associated data. So what Mark's displaying here is the associated metadata such as cost, material, quantity, and other components of information that could be held within the central database. So as Mark is traversing through the assembly tree or selecting parts within the workspace itself, we're actually seeing the right-hand side panel updating real-time, sharing the information that is associated to that component inside the database. So it provides a very simple but a very effective way of giving you engineering data in context. So it's, for an example, this information could reside within an Excel spreadsheet. And if you were to receive that information as a CAD model and an Excel spreadsheet, that is, you know, connecting the dots and a lot of information overload in one instance. But what we're delivering here is the information in context with the part, which provides a far more effective way of digesting and understanding all of the connected and associated information. So if I've answered questions directly via the chat window, Mark, while you've been speaking. So I'll change presenter back to myself. Thanks for sharing, Mark. And also thanks for everyone who has been on the call. I hope this provided a good introduction and understanding of what these products do offer. I'm just going to quickly recap, because the focus of this webinar wasn't necessarily to compare SpinFire Web versus SpinFire Ultimate and determine which one is better or best. I hope that you can appreciate the unique traits of each tool to support various aspects of an enterprise-wide collaboration strategy. So by combining these two applications, both the desktop and the web, you can really enrich communication and collaboration to support your design objectives, and it gives you the means to effectively collaborate internally and externally, and the controls that you would need to do so. So that's it. I hope that you've enjoyed and learned something today, and I'd like to thank everyone who's attended today live. You will all receive a recording of this webinar. It's sent out automatically the following day, so please check your inbox for a link to the recording. If you do have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact your account manager or by filling out a form on our website. And if you have any suggestions for a future webinar topic, we'd love to hear from you. So email marketing@actify.com. But we hope to see you at our next webinar. Keep an eye on the website. And from all of the Actify team, we hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.